Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard D. the Cruz.
I'm tired.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hi, tired. I'm Connor.
It is Monday, May 27th, 2024. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Don't follow us. Don't go to Twitter. Don't go to Facebook. Don't go to Twitter. No, don't say it. Just say the word. Sorry, that's always sunny. Don't go to Facebook. Don't go to Twitter. Go to youtube.com right now. Please, for the love of God, go to youtube.com. Go to patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. Watch the new video about Lies Beneath.
I did.
Thank you. Was it good?
I liked
Rate
it
1
too.
out of 10.
I give it an 8.
Okay, thank you.
6.9.
Thank you.
It's not a 7. It's not a 7.
I'm glad you guys are honest. So it's better than Starfield.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well, it's better. It's better than any AAA game that gets released this year, apparently.
Okay. My video about Lies Beneath, better than Starfield, quote unquote, Richard D. the Cruz of the Gaming Discourse. No, it's revisiting Lies Beneath, which is one of my favorite horror games of all time. A really good VR horror game that came out 4 years ago. Always wanted to go back to it, so I went back, played through, wrote a little bit more about its themes, about some of the metaphor that's going on in the game and stuff like that. So if interested, go check that out. Go to our Patreon. If you don't go to our Patreon and subscribe, I will cry myself to sleep. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something sad, but hyperbole is not my strong suit. Anyway, we were off last week. You're obviously listening to us this week, so congratulations. You made a good choice. We're going to be talking games. We're going to be talking news. Connor, why don't we start with what you've been playing since we've been off?
I've gotten back into U-Boat. There's a big update coming for it tomorrow, actually, adding a whole bunch of things to the game. So just getting back into the swing of how to operate and use a U-Boat to its full potential and getting around patrols, stuff like that.
Yeah, and they've updated it a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, and those it's like a sim. So you do you have food levels and stuff like that?
Yes, you do. And guys go through food fast.
Yeah.
So you got to bring a lot of food.
They're men.
And you can in that game you can turn off all like the assists where you actually have to
you can go hardcore sim to where it's where like you're doing the manual aiming and like calculating the trajectory for your torpedoes, manual like navigation and having to plot your courses.
What's that triangle thing?
Yeah.
That makes circles on a map. What's it called?
A compass?
No, not a compass. Wait, is that a compass?
Yeah.
No, the thing that has like two legs.
It's called a compass.
Oh, is this called a compass?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the
That
same
must
word.
be
The same word
confusing.
as the other one.
How do they sail ships? Give me the compass. Which one, sir? Come on. Come up with different names, people.
Everyone.
Well, because usually the compass that they had that points north was housed in a location and was stationary.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
And they didn't really use compasses on ships till a lot later. They used the compass that you would draw on maps with earlier.
We all know all you do is play map games and read books about wooden ships. We get it, okay? Not that I don't envy you.
Old wooden ship used during the Civil War.
No, Ron, I'd be surprised if corporate was concerned about the use of an old Civil War ship, but nice try. Richard, or Connor, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Okay. Richard, what the hell have you been playing?
Well, first off, I want to announce that I myself have bought a Steam Deck.
Yeah!
Hooray!
I'm so excited.
Play a sounder, any one of them.
Xbox.
That play a different
Perfect.
Filthy human piece of garbage.
Also perfect. I bought a Steam Deck. I am so ecstatic, but I am also very, very frustrated because I bought this Steam Deck on the 24th
of May. Okay.
And
3 days.
it is the 27th, and it is still not shipped.
Oh no.
And so we're so used to a
Quick turnaround.
Amazon, get it, that for the first 2.5 days I kept what, and it's like, yeah, we got your order. And then it's just Gabe staring at me like, what are you gonna do about it? We got your order. And so Saturday morning, it's label created. And that's it. That's all it's been since Saturday. And I understand Sunday they don't ship anything. I understand today's Memorial Day.
Yeah,
but I'm just like,
Memorial
God, I paid you $370 for this thing.
You ordered it. You ordered it on the exact wrong day to order things.
I did. Yes.
Because the long.
I ordered it. And then like the next day I was like, And so,
Yeah.
so I'm very
sorry,
like,
that is going to be a painful wait. I'm very excited for you.
I'm very excited. Thank you. And I'm staring at Baldur's Gate 3 and I'm staring at like Hades 2 as much as I don't want to play it right now because it's in early access, but apparently it has more content than the first game, even in early access. And I'm like, that makes it okay, right?
Right,
I'm like, ugh. So yeah, it's a waiting game. So I'm just staring at my screen protector and dock that I've already ordered and has been delivered within one day from Amazon.
Very
I'm just
nice.
like,
I would consider looking at maybe getting a Steam controller, because there are some games that and they still sell those, right? They still sell the Steam controllers, right?
They do.
With the
I think
touchpads?
you can find them, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They come in every now and again at
But
work.
like some games like Pillars of Eternity, because Pillars, if you play Pillars of Eternity on the Steam Deck, it doesn't.
Mouse and keyboard is king.
Mouse and
right?
keyboard is they don't make the Steam controller anymore.
Good God.
Never mind. Okay, don't get that.
It comes
Richard.
in every now and again. But I don't know. That thing's weird.
Well, because what I was going to say was the Steam controller has those. Well, I guess I
touchpads.
thought it was still something that you could get. Apparently not. But the touchpads, because a lot of games use the little touchpads on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Like if you play an older RPG, like not Pillars isn't older, but maybe like got the original Baldur's Gate, where it was based on mouse and keyboard, but you can kind of finagle the controls to get it to work. But controlling the mouse is easier with your thumb than it is with a thumbstick. So it's like if you could have got something like that where you can play it on your couch and essentially, unhook that touchpad from the Steam Deck and have it on a controller. But then again, you could also just get a
Mouse and keyboard.
and that's totally fine too. Now,
Yeah, which is totally fine, because I do have a wireless mouse and keyboard, and that might help for games I want to play that are centric, that are mouse and keyboard centric. So
nice. I'm super excited. Did you get the OLED model?
no, I just got LCD.
Okay.
I'm not a big I can see the difference. I don't care. It's not like that night and day for me.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely excited. Although it is the 64 gigs, I went for but I don't mind using micro SD cards and getting the thing eventually. I'm fine with that. And I also heard you can use an external hard drive on a dock anyway, so it's like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah, because it's basically a mini computer. It's just a handheld PC that runs on Linux essentially.
Yeah.
So okay, well that's awesome.
Doing that, yeah. Played a little more of Stellar Blade and ran into a surprise Cronenberg section, which is very cool. Running around in that, but I haven't played as much more as I want to. But I still really enjoy the game, and I still would like to run through it. Not as quick as I can, but enough that I can enjoy it. I started up the newest free-to-play game, not from Hoyoverse. It's from Kuro Games, which they made a game called Punishing Gray Raven on PC and Android, which is like an action hack and slash. Very Devil May Cry reminiscent. This one's called Wuthering Waves, which everyone just refers to as woo-wah online, like the fandom calls it woo-wah. But it is another action-based game that is we have Souls-likes now. Of course, we've had them for years, but now we're starting to get, I don't know what to call them. I'm just going to say a Genshin-like.
Okay.
Because it is a fully open world game, very extremely focused on the hack and slash aspect of it, more so than Genshin Impact is. However, every system in place is essentially a one-to-one of Genshin Impact, much like Lies of P and like Dark Souls. I mean, I'm being facetious. They're not exactly one-to-one, but when you play Lies of P, it's like, okay, yeah, this is...
Yeah. It's like a spin-off almost.
To the extent where like the day it came out, like Genshin pages were like, here's the translations of what this item is to what it would be in Genshin. And it's like,
oh, wow.
So it's like, oh, okay, neat. Right now it's a bit rough on the edges. It's a game that has a lot of info dump right at the start.
Nice.
Of something, of things that you are not aware of in the world. And I think for something like Genshin, that makes sense because you are a traveler from a distant world that has fallen onto whatever. And then for Honkai it makes sense because it's a huge universe, and so there's things you've never heard about that. But this one seems very self-contained on this world, so things are happening without you knowing it. So it's very, very weird, and they try to make things sound cool. in Genshin, your character is called the Traveler because they can't make you your name that you name it. It's just, you're called the Traveler.
Yeah.
In Honkai Impact, you're the Trailblazer, but that makes sense because you are kind of traveling the stars, traversing the stars and whatnot, and that makes more sense. But this one, they call you Rover.
Rover.
Yeah, like, and it's just because, well, you are a traveler, and we found you. I don't know what's going on. You're just Rover, and it's like, okay, well, it's weird. But it is rough. There's a lot because I guess they're using the Unreal Engine 4, and so lots of graphical glitches, lots of crashing, lots of very rough stuff going on, and it plays well. It has this Pokemon aspect to it. When you defeat monsters, they will leave their like resonance or their soul, and you can capture it and use them as a secondary ability. Whatever they can do, like you'll turn into them real quick, and they'll do their like move will affect whatever enemies you fight, which is a nice like add-on to whatever you're doing. But I haven't played enough that it's grabbed me. I'm actually kind of dragging through it right now. But I don't know if that's a consequence of not wanting to play something like this right now, or just... it's the basic level interest for me because I'm a big fan of like hack and slash games, and when it has that, like, if I dodge at the right time, everything slows down, and then it's like that stuff satisfies my ADHD. So I'm like, yes, yeah, awesome. But everything else about it is very slow. So it's off to a rough start right now.
You'll be playing that on your Steam Deck soon.
Maybe. I know I can do Genshin. I can't do Honkai.
Because Honkai not on Steam?
It's not on Steam. No, they use their own. But with the dual boot, you can.
Yeah, if you go into desktop mode, it's kind of you kind of have to work through a lot of the kinks.
Yeah,
you can. Yeah, if you have games through like Epic or GOG, you can get them to launch. But it's kind of it can be hit and miss sometimes.
Yeah, and Honkai, I guess, has a cheat system that just does not mesh with the Steam Deck, so you just can't do it. Or
that's too bad.
That's fine.
It's too bad.
It is too bad. Yeah, it is too bad. But I mean, I do play it on my PS5. But
sure.
Beyond Wuthering Waves, of course, I'm going to go into Honkai Impact. Penacony finished its main story, and I think it was one of the most impressive stories because I talked about this Penacony, the land of dreams. I don't know if it's called that, but you'll go to sleep into like in a hotel room, and you'll wake up in this dreamscape where you can kind of do whatever you want. And everybody has images of themselves in this world of what they want to be. And at first it is kind of this like indulgence area that you are taking part in. But as the story continues, there are cogs at work, and you find that characters that are introduced, I mentioned Clocky, like the little mascot, and there's like other little cartoon mascots. Those mascots are all allegories or based off actual people that existed that made Penacony what it was. Because before Penacony existed, it was actually kind of like a war-torn area.
Oh, okay.
And they ended up being like the heroes who like liberated it, and they became those characters and stuff like that. So it was very cool to see that. The villain I enjoyed more than Persona 5 Royal's villain, because Persona 5 Royal's villain has the same kind of main objective, and that is to create a utopia where everyone can have what they want. And I didn't like the way it was done in Royal because I have no media literacy. No, in Persona 5 Royal, it boils down to he lost his wife. He wants everybody not to lose anything. But at the same time, his role in that game, he's like a psychiatrist. And for me, like, the first rule is like, well, you have to overcome these things. That's what makes you a better person. So like it all falls apart for me.
Yeah, fantasy realized is nightmare.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, that doesn't work. But in this storyline, the villain was very interesting because he wanted the same goal, but he wanted everybody to make that choice on their own. But every single example he gives you, he doesn't just give you one example and be like, this is why this should happen. He gives you more than one example. He sits you down and is giving you these scenarios, and he asks you what you would do. And you do have like an A and B choice. but it doesn't matter what choice you make because it is I understand where you're coming from. That does make sense. Well, let me give you another example. So there's no like right or wrong answer. And so it kind of provides this villain that at the end of the day, he is wrong because once again, we have to overcome these things in order to grow. But at the same time, he has that like, well, you're kind of right too. It's that
you kind of wish it were true in a sense. Yeah. One of the most famous episodes of Star Trek, the Cage, which is the pilot episode. And this is before Kirk. It was Pike at the time, and Pike gets in these rooms where it's like a fantasy.
Yeah.
And he realizes that it's fake. And so the whole episode is that he gets these like fantasy lives and these like weird cages that he's in, but he tosses it all away because he'd rather have reality than the construct fantasy that's around him.
Right.
So it kind of reminds me of that. It's,
sure.
You kind of wish it could be true. There's kind of part of you that yearns for that simplicity, for bringing people back, or or like nostalgia. I wish I could be a kid again, but if you were actually a kid again, you'd be like, oh man, this kind of sucks. Something like that.
And that is part of the. Of course, it's not a story that hasn't been told. It's been told plenty of times, but yeah, you do in this like in Penacony, you do see children running around. But when you talk to them, they're obviously adults. They're obviously I was just drinking. They say these things, and it's kind of just that like reflection of what you want from yourself. You do see an old man that's like, yeah, actually in the real world, I'm dead pretty much. Like I'm brain, but I'm here because I can,
It's interesting.
So it was very cool. Yeah. And they pull out a lot of really neat things. And three of them that I really enjoy are, two of them are combined. That I do enjoy the D&D aspect of Honkai Star Rail as far as the storyline goes. Every character you meet follows some sort of path, which would be the religions you follow in D&D, or not the gods you follow in D&D.
Yeah, I guess it depends. If you're talking about Baldur's Gate specifically,
like, is it like chaotic neutral?
The alignment.
Yeah, the alignment.
Oh, okay.
And then like whoever like
and then
rules
different
that area
deities will have like Shars.
Yeah.
That would be lawful evil. Is goddess Shar anyway? But yeah.
So there is like the preservation, and those characters usually focus on shielding or protecting, and then there's abundance and harmony. Harmony is like healing sometimes. The villain follows the harmony, and what he believes is like the harmony. Very neat, because the point you end up making towards him is this very cool pull-up moment to where you're like, so you follow the harmony, and it's kind of like, well, I got news for you, because after you've made your point, after like everything you gain access to, the abilities of harmony, the god of harmony shows herself to you and is like, oh, I'm here and I'm actually choosing you, the main character, because you do follow what I entail. And so the villain's like, oh, she showed herself to you, but not me. Like, all right, and so that's where that comes from. This is spoiler territory, but no one's going to play. Yeah, that's fine. But the end is very cool, because you defeat him at the end, and you go through all of the rigmarole of speaking to every single cast member that had something to do with it, and especially the IPC, which is basically like the universe's BlackRock. BlackRock, owns everything, right?
Interesting. Okay.
They're basically like they'll go to planets and be like, hey, your planet's in pretty rough shape right now. We'll come and help you out.
But we're going to own you.
You owe us eventually taxes, all that stuff,
Back in the day, we used to call it a mafia. Now we just call it private equity.
Yeah.
Hey-o!
Several characters help you out throughout the story, and then they go, hey, we'll join you on the crew to your next spot. So let's go. Let's choose where we're going to go next. And there's one woman who helps you. She's very prophetic, and she's very... she does tarot cards and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, that thing I gave you at the beginning of, like, when you first got here, can I have that back? Yeah, sure, here you go. And the story ends, the credits roll, because they roll at every point. But at the end, she's, before the credits roll, she goes, yeah, well, I'm going to tell you a story before, whenever you're tired and you go to bed, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a story, but we'll save that for later. The credits roll. and you hear her voice in the black screen, and she goes, okay, well, let me tell you that story right now. She goes, well, first things first, you guys actually all failed. You guys all died.
Oh, wow.
Like in the final battle. Like you didn't succeed. Everyone's dead. She's like, but that thing I gave you, like that held all your memories. So let's go back because there's something in this story that's completely wrong.
Oh,
and
interesting.
You need to find out what it is. She gives you the choices and you make the choice. And she goes, yeah, so this person you encountered was not supposed to do whatever he did because he was a memory. And you encounter him right at the start in reality. She says, he can't exist in reality. So how did you meet him? That means you've always been in this dream.
Oh,
you've
weird.
never been in the, so then you have to do the final battle again after you've really woken up. And so the whole ending changes and everything. It was very, very satisfying, but I finished that story and now I'm just kind of like waiting for the next part because the main story is done, but there's still like cleanup and other stuff coming later. But it's very satisfying, very, very good twists and turns. And I loved all the characters and stuff. There's a really cool cowboy. His name is Boot Hill. And he's a Galaxy Ranger, and he follows the hunt, which is like their specialty is attacking one person.
Oh, okay.
Because they're like hunting. But he's a android robot, and he can't say any cuss words, so he's always like saying,
just like Data.
Yeah, but he's awesome. He's a great character. But yeah, played that, loved it, and so I'm just waiting for the next thing to play, which is, I mean, obviously I'm doing Stellar Blade, but when that Steam Deck comes in.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited
wait.
for your Steam Deck. I am excited. You're gonna hear the little chicken.
Oh yeah,
I've
already bought all of my like starter
nice.
movies and
Nice.
stuff like that.
Very
I'm like,
nice.
yeah, let's do it.
It's much easier to make custom starter movies now, or to download them and put them in place. I was gonna say there are so many.
Right,
there are so many good games. Vampire Survivors, basically every roguelike. I mean, so many. Every long RPG. I would like. I have them all for the Nintendo Switch, but I mean, I would. Pillars 1 and 2, Baldur's 1 and 2.
If you're sitting here telling me,
Neverwinter.
if you're sitting here telling me that Ghost of Tsushima runs incredibly well on the Steam Deck,
I have not heard that. It does?
yes, I have heard.
Oh man,
pretty much unanimously that it runs almost flawlessly on Steam Deck.
Wow.
Then it's like, well, why am I dealing with the Switch?
Yeah, that's interesting. I have not heard that. Yeah, and then Baldur's Gate 3. When I tried it, I preferred it on my PC, but it may be updated now because there's been so many patches, so it may run a bit smoother.
It's still in the top 5 of most played on Steam Deck.
Yeah, so it may run better now.
But also I've told the story of like a guy coming in and buying Witcher 3 on the Switch, and I'm like, hey, got anywhere else to play this? But he's just like, oh, I'm just going on a trip. He's like, no, I don't mind. And it's like, okay, well, it's that.
Have fun, sure. Yeah.
We've talked about it plenty of times.
Okay, so I'll go through a couple games real quick. I started and completed while I got to the credits of Animal Well. It is one of the best games this year. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a very mysterious Metroidvania. It's funny that I mentioned to Richard like a couple weeks ago how much it's like I need to get into Metroidvanias. I need this. I gotta pick up I gotta pick up Moonscars. I gotta get into these things. Then like the next day, Animal Well came out, and it's the first time in a long time that I've played through an entire Metroidvania. There's no real combat. It's more puzzles and platforming and stuff like that. It's very good. It can be very difficult and frustrating at times because there are jumping puzzles where it's like it comes down to a pixel. You have to get each jump perfect, and if you don't, you have to restart the entire thing all over again. But that's okay because it's difficult in the sense that like that jump is difficult, but if you miss and fall, getting back to it and restarting that process usually doesn't take too much time.
Good.
So it's difficult in the thing that you have to do, but forgiving if you fail, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's creepy. It's serene. The soundtrack reminds me of like a Donnie Darko. I don't forget the composer or the director, but that like synth, like Donnie Darko. I don't know if you guys remember what that soundtrack.
Yeah,
like.
I do. I just for some reason the
dreamy,
the director is
very dreamy and like floaty.
escaping me.
But it made me think of that. I don't really know. Maybe because of the bunny in Donnie Darko. There's like creepy animals and Animal Well. That could be it too. Animal Well kind of reminds me of an old game. It doesn't tell you a lot. You have to figure out a lot on your own. You don't get a map unless you just find the map.
Oh, okay.
It's not that difficult to find it, but it's one of those things where if you go left instead of right, you may go for a bit and not have a map, and you're just like, oh shoot, where do I have to start remembering things? Do I have to start taking more notes? And then eventually you're like, oh, thank God, I found a map. So there's a bunch of stuff like that. It's very intuitive. There are puzzles you solve where it doesn't teach you how to solve the puzzle. You kind of just have to try something, and you're like, oh, that worked. There's a bunch of stuff like that I really enjoyed. The art direction is really good. The sound work is fantastic. I wish there was a little bit more music. Music doesn't play everywhere, but when the music does play, it's really meaningful. So it plays when things are scary. It plays when things are peaceful. But other than that, there's a lot of it where it just comes down to nature sounds. And being Animal Well, it's like this strange concept where you're in I'm not even sure what it is, like a cave, and there's all these different animals in it doing different things. And it kind of feels like the animals know something you don't. Because there are shrines and there are statues of different animals. And yeah, but you play as this little orange Pac-Man looking thing. Actually, the game reminds me a lot of Pac-Man. I told somebody if Pac-Man was a survival horror game, it'd be Animal Well. But so you get this sense that there's like these that the world around you is built up on like myth and religion and stuff that you don't know a whole lot about because the iconography and the statues are everywhere, and you're like, so what's going on? So it's very mysterious, very intriguing. The pixel art is fantastic. I saw an interview with the game's developer, forget the guy's name, but it was with GameDeveloper.com, and he talked about sort of the merits of pixel graphics, and he said that, and I'm paraphrasing, he said sometimes pixel graphics are sort of associated with nostalgia, but he feels that that sort of pixel graphics have their own merits, have their own things to offer, I guess, to put it, to oversimplify it, I guess. And I would agree with him. I think 16-bit, whatever, pixel graphics, yeah, there's nostalgia there, but I also think they lend themselves to certain feelings and emotions, and you can create a look or an aesthetic with them that you can't in higher fidelities or whatever. And I think you see something like that similar with like low fidelity horror games that are very popular,
right?
Where you have like a PS1 style or low poly, and that's kind of creepy. I mean, one of the reasons that I think older horror games, people remember them so well is because the fidelity wasn't there. So you weren't really sure what this monster was that was coming after you. Your mind was sort of filling in the gaps.
Yes.
And I think people like that disconnect between you're seeing a monster in front of you, but because of the low visuals and the low poly or whatever, it's undefined as to what exactly it is, right? And it's like that scene in Silent Hill 2 where Pyramid Head is doing something.
Yeah.
You don't know what exactly. And I think that's the point, is it's just it's a terrifying quick shot.
Right.
It doesn't have high enough fidelity or anything to really understand what's going on. It's just limbs and a sword, and it's terrifying. And I think that's kind of the point. But anyway, so yeah, I'd highly recommend it. Definitely for you, Connor, for you as well. If you get frustrated on a puzzle, just keep going. You'll get it. You just have, some of those jumps are ridiculous. You have to, like, if you miss it by a plank, you're done. You have to restart the entire game. Not the entire game, but you have to restart like an entire section. Just remember to save, because the way the game works is when you're jumping to different sections of the map, if you die, you restart back at your last save point, right? So it can take you a few minutes to get, maybe not a few minutes, a couple minutes to get back to like the spot that you died at. Mm-hmm. But there are these telephones around the map. And so if you save at a telephone and you die, you spawn at the last telephone you saved at. So just if you come across the telephone, save, because that means that the section you're getting into, you kind of have to survive through without dying.
Oh, okay.
And if you only have a save at the main telephone, that means you're going to be back into the middle of the map and you have to jump all the way back to the place that you're going. So yeah, I would recommend whenever you see a phone, save. Definitely do that. But I would also just recommend the game in general. And then, yeah, I'm 7 hours into Hellblade 2. I have mixed feelings. I think everybody has mixed feelings.
Seems that way.
But it's not the kind of mixed feelings that I usually have about a game. Maybe it is. I don't know. So a few things. It's undeniable that the visuals in Hellblade 2 are jaw-dropping. They're astounding. And not just the visuals, but the art direction. Some of the way that they do the shots, some of the way that they choreograph the actors it's just fantastic. I don't know Melina Juergens. She was apparently a video editor, and suddenly she's one of the best actresses on the planet because her portrayal of Senua this time is different, but she's just as good. And this time, Senua's character is a bit different. In the first one, Senua was a little more vulnerable, I think. She was younger. And she was sort of figuring out how to deal with her psychosis. In this one, Senua is more assertive. She's more... not brave. She was brave in the first one, too. She's more assertive. She's more aggressive. She's not as vulnerable. She's more powerful, I guess. She still has self-doubt. She still has... self-image issues or maybe self-conscious issues due to the psychosis, but it's interesting to see how her character developed. It is a little weird that you're seeing her in a sequel because Senua's Sacrifice told a complete story, and the Senua's story was kind of like told in the way that a myth is told, which I really like, but it's weird to have a sequel because when you read like old myths and legends, they don't always follow like a basic logical coherence, right?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
You know, it's like, like you're really telling me Icarus put wings together and flew? Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, Daedalus did.
Oh, yes, thank you. Daedalus put them together.
Icarus just flew.
Icarus
flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, and then fell. But it's like you're really telling me like that doesn't make any sense. But the point of the myth is not like the logic behind it, right? It's all this stuff around it. So, I think in Hellblade it's similar, but I think there are I think the game has misguided priorities. Starting with the 2, it has black bars on top and bottom, like a movie, right?
The entire time?
The entire time.
Ooh.
And I don't see why, because to me that just makes the game worse. Every time I'm playing the game, I'm like, if you removed these black bars, it would look better because there would be more. I have a similar case with Resident Evil. I remember playing RE8, walking around as Ethan, and I'm like, if this were third person, it would be better because you would see Ethan next to these giant set pieces rather than in first person. And when you play RE4 and you see Leon next to those giant set pieces or whatever, I think it just looks better because you can take more in. That doesn't mean that every game should be third person or anything like that. But with Hellblade, Hellblade 2, I don't see why they have the I think it's letterbox is the term, right? Mm-hmm. I don't see why they have the letterbox stylization, because it just feels confining. And while the visuals look good, it's just if you take it away, it's just going to be more good. Mm-hmm. So I don't see why. So that's the first thing that I'm confused about. It's a creative decision that I don't understand. I think it's trying too hard to be quote unquote cinematic. There are scenes that go on really long, and I like Senua crawling through a cave, like crawling through a hole in a cave to get outside or something. And it just goes on for like a minute. And I think it's there maybe to avoid a loading screen. I don't know. Lots of dialogue is happening during it. So maybe it's because they want you to listen to the dialogue. I'm not sure. But it feels like there is stuff like that put in place to avoid loading screens. And it's like, just put a loading screen in, it's fine. Not every game has to avoid loading screens. It'll be okay.
Right.
Like this idea that games need to be seamless, or God of War, it can't have any cuts or anything like that. It's like, it's nice, but at the end of the day, if you have to put like band-aids and jerry rig all kinds of different ways to do it, you're just making the game worse and weird. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have a loading screen. It's not going to make it worse. It's not going to make it any less artistic or thoughtful or anything like that, which is why I think it's kind of misguided. The visuals are good, but they're also sort of indistinct. You guys remember that Unreal Engine 5 trailer we got? It kind of looked like
Of that girl in the cave,
and
right?
it kind of looked like that one game that came out last year.
Forspoken?
Forspoken. It kind of looked like that because she was like running on top of rocks and stuff. But it was like a tech demo, and it was sort of generic. Like, she was just in a cave. Cave looked good, but it was just a cave.
Mm-hmm.
So Hellblade 2 is a little bit like that too. You'll walk through caves and you'll walk through the sides, rocks along a beach. My voice is getting destroyed for no reason. And it all looks good, but it's generic. It's generic good. It's like there's nothing distinct about it. If you took Senua away from the game and just took a screenshot, it'd be like, oh, that looks nice, but it's just rocks. So it's like, what about it is distinct? I think there's less of that. In Senua's Sacrifice, there was a lot more of that. You had the part where you were walking down a wooden bridge, and in the distance, you had a giant building, and you had to fight enemies on your way there. So there was that kind of stuff. But in this one, there's less of it. So I think the priority is, let's make it look as good as possible. But it's like, okay, that's just a good-looking rock. So it's like, I congratulate you on the good-looking rock. But, I mean, we got good-looking rocks in the Unreal 5 engine a couple years ago. So what's the big deal here? So, the combat is good but rigid, because you fight one enemy at a time, and it locks you onto that enemy. And it's basic third-person combat.
Okay.
You parry, you dodge, fast attack, strong attack.
Oh, yeah.
But the camera, because the camera is still in the letterbox, and you always fight in arenas, because you don't get like ambushed in the middle of some walking section somewhere. You always see, okay, this is going to be a combat section because it's an open area. Because of the way the combat works, that means you can run into the edge of the arena and not really know, because you're locked onto this enemy, and the camera is rigid. You can't really move it around. Right. It's not like a third-person action game. So, and then dodging's kind of awkward, because again, you're sort of locked on. So when you're dodging, you're like not sure exactly what's going on or how far you have to dodge or whatever. So again, it feels like the priority is trying to capture like camera angles and quote unquote cinematic visuals, but it gets in the way of just better third person combat. So there's a lot of themes in the game: compassion, leadership. I wrote some down: acceptance, forgiveness. She's afraid of letting people know that she hears voices in her head. She remembers her father, and she's like reconciling her feelings about her father and how he was sort of a monster to her. She, I think a lesson that she's learning is one about compassion and sort of helping people. And maybe if your first instinct is to sympathize with somebody or someone's plight or something like that, kind of. So it's really interesting. I plan on finishing it. I don't hate it, but once I finish it, I'll look back on it and have a better understanding of what's going on. But so far, I think the first one was probably better, and I think the second one was just so far, the second one has just been, the priorities are just sort of mixed up. But there are some legitimately like incredible scenes, some really awesome scenes in combat. Some really awesome visuals that I went and got my wife, and I was like, somebody has to see this right now. I was like, come look at this. You have to see what's happening on this screen right now.
Somebody come look at me.
Yeah.
Do you think a big consequence of this game was that in 2018, 2019, Last of Us 2 came out, and everybody was like, we have to do this, but better. Like cinematically.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Because the black bars for me indicate cinematic
movie.
Like that's what it is. And it's like, if you have those on it constantly, you want to make a movie. You don't want to make a game.
Yeah, and I think, yeah.
And I'm not accusing them of like, that's all they want to do. Obviously, Ninja Theory has made lots of games. But when you make an artistic choice like that, I can't help but think that's what you wanted to do.
And I don't like it in games because when you're shooting scenes for a movie, I get it. in Red Dead Redemption 2, you get the black bars. Dutch is talking, so you're focused on Dutch.
Right, and then when you go to gameplay, it goes away.
And it goes away. So, and when you're in a movie, the emotions are intense. You're looking into Dutch. You're looking into Arthur, right? It's confined. It's tense. When you're out in the wilderness, it's open. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Expanse. There's a season of The Expanse where some of the characters are on a planet, some of the characters are out in space. When the characters are on the planet, it's letterbox because they're on a planet. They're confined. They're in atmosphere. When you go to the characters that are out in space, it's no longer letterbox. It's full screen because it's space. It's huge. It's open. It's everywhere, right? So that's how they sort of juxtapose those two feelings of where the characters were in the space of the show. But again, that's like the letterbox serves a purpose there outside of just it looks like a movie. And I don't know, maybe I don't think that's what's the word? Not deconstructive. I don't think that's I'm completely spacing on the word here. Reductionist. There. I don't think that's reductionist because that's kind of what it feels like. And there are just scenes where it's like, man, this would look like combat. Combat look better if I just had top and bottom parts of the screen. It'd be fine. It would be more good visuals. There's nothing bad with that. So anyway, that's Hellblade 2. And Melina Juergens will win performance, I'm sure, again this year. Because her performance is legitimately really good. And yeah, so it's... Unless anyone has anything else to say, let's hit the news.
Good.
Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. You detect a torpedo 30 kilometers away. What do?
Cry.
Strap in, and we're about to eat 40 G's, baby. We're trying to pull this ship out of hitting the torpedo. What's going on? Okay, more games journalism layoffs announced by the website. IGN Entertainment acquired Eurogamer, GameIndustry.biz, VG247, Rock Paper Shotguns, among others, from ReedPop, who also owns stock. In Digital Foundry. Brendan Sinclair, Jeffrey Rousseau were let go as redundancies at Rapid Shotgun. Alice Bell and Stephanie Nunley Jackson were also let go. Bell spoke to Aftermath's Nathan Grayson about the layoffs. Before the sale, Bell asked specifically about her position, and she was told all employees would stay employed on the same basis, so clearly somebody just straight up lied to her. She also said, quote, "Just as I am against the consolidation of video game developers, I am against the consolidation of video game websites, so I cannot see this as a good thing. I am most worried about people's livelihoods, but I'm also very worried that they won't be allowed to be weird and write thoughtful, critical things. I worry that, now that the machine has increased in size, it will necessarily crush my most talented peers from the network into writing boring, SOE-focused things designed to appeal to the averaged-out reader. But people aren't average, so when you try to appeal to the average, you end up appealing to nobody," end quote, which I thought was a brilliant goddamn sentence. Meanwhile, Rolling Stone has launched a new gaming section. They once had a gaming section. I think that gaming section closed. Now they're opening a new gaming section. But Rolling Stone partnered with ESL Faceit, which is an esports company that is owned by the Savvy Group, which is a subsidiary of the Saudi Arabian's Public Investment Fund, which is chaired by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud. So yeah, lots going on there. What do we think? Man, and I'm sorry if you listened to our other conversations about games journalism over the past year, because it's basically the same conversation. But
well, if Alice Bell's worried about people being forced into writing more SEO focused things, she can drop that worry because Google is actively destroying SEO. With their new AI feature.
Yeah, which who knows how that's going to work.
Oh, they're going to sell it in 2 months to someone else to run.
Yeah,
because again, it's something that's not. Well, it is a Google search, but it's alternative Google searching that isn't working, and it's not Maps or Gmail, so they're going to sell it off to someone else for them to deal with, like they have with every other project they've done.
Sure. Yeah. And I didn't even think about the Google AI thing, how that's going to impact SEO. And I'm sure
Oh, it's awful.
there's all kinds of people out there that are going nuts about it, and for good reason.
You could add a eighth of a cup of non-toxic glue to your pizzas to make the cheese more tacky.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
and I know that it's inaccurate, but I think there has to be issues beyond, and I haven't read about the whole AI thing yet, but I think there just has to be issues beyond it being like inaccurate and stuff like that. Because if I don't know, if you're using Google search to just extract things from sites, then that means those sites aren't getting the ad revenue, correct? So then what's the point of SEO writing at all? There isn't one.
Right.
Because you're not even writing for a search engine anymore, because the search engine just mines out the stuff that it knows people wants to read and reduces a click, and now you're completely obsolete. So it's like, what the fuck happens there? I don't know. I'm sorry, but with this, I wanted to say this is a lot of bullshit. Brendan Sinclair's weekly column at gamesindustry.biz was essential reading, and I am going to be a less informed consumer of video game news and content because of that. That's not to say that the other layoffs were any more ridiculous. They are. But I don't know how to, I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on this? I'm sorry. I don't want to go off on a tangent and talk for 45 minutes to an hour about a bunch of stuff.
I think it's fair to well, of course you want to go after the average person when it comes to trying to catch your audience, but the average person also eventually gets bored of the same thing over and over, and they do need that interesting or attractive angle. And so this is what sucks about the consolidation of all of these sites into what we call the machine, is because the average person obviously is going to get forced to go look for something else, and when they go look for something else and find that next website that has what they need, how long before that website gets popular enough that it gets reabsorbed back into the machine, you know? So it's kind of just this Ouroboros of BS.
Driven by growth and the same bullshit that Microsoft talks about.
The short-term, stuff. And I really, God, I hate that word, redundancies.
Yes, it is such a ridiculous, it's such a condescending word.
Yeah, and it's just, and unfortunately it's true. Like, it's an obvious statement, but it's just like, oh yeah, no, you see this person as a product, not a contributor.
Yeah.
And that really sucks, and more than a backstab to these folks. But it's unfortunate that now we have less of a good thing. More of IGN. and
already a place that doesn't have so much of that good thing, right? Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, it's their definition of redundancy is different, because no one writes like Brendan Sinclair. I don't know how much you guys have Brendan Sinclair you guys have read, but I've read a lot of him, and he's incredibly insightful, and he's kind of funny. He has a very, I don't know if he's British, but it comes off like British dry humor, which is great. But like, I don't know. I don't know if anybody does that at IGN. I'm not sure. Nope. I don't think anybody does that at Eurogamer. No one that I know of. So it's like, but that's not to say that IGN or Eurogamer are bad or suck or anything like that. I'm just saying I love Eurogamer. I'm just saying that it's unique. The stuff that he writes every week, and it's insightful, and you learn a lot from it. So to call it redundant is just condescending to me, and it's incorrect, because it's like, I don't know, if I'm putting together a site and I want the site to be meaningful. If you gave me, okay, name 10 people you want at your video game site, Tyler, well, one of those names is going to be Brendan Sinclair. So it's like, if you're letting him go because of redundancies, you clearly don't want good content. That's not your goal, I guess. That's not something that you're really aiming toward. Or else you would keep them on, and you'd figure out a way to reduce that redundancy by not laying off people, and maybe figure out a different way. And, gamesindustry.biz and IGN have two different client bases, right? Like,
very different.
IGN, I don't know. Listen, I like Rebecca Valentine a lot. I think she does a lot of good work. I understand a lot of people's frustration with IGN, because IGN has always toed the line between, like, hype beast and kind of news, but like kind of like they're the ESPN of video game news, right? It's like
the TMZ of video
maybe
games.
TMZ, yeah. It's like TMZ with if Jason Schreier joined TMZ there, maybe that, because they do some good hard news. But yes, the bulk of it I remember at one point Brian Fantano? Is that his name?
Yes, yeah.
They were doing like
or Altano?
Altano. Brian Fantana is from Anchorman. Brian Altano is from IGN, and I don't know. He's a good guy, I'm sure, but I just remember they were doing like the Little Caesars bacon pizza thing a long time ago. That's something that I always remember. Anyway, Brian Fantana's from Anchorman. No, what's the point I was making? But these two sites have two different client bases, right? And GamingTheStreet.biz is like dry, and it's nuts and bolts news. It's your vegetables.
Ratchet and Clank mentioned.
It's your vegetables. It's your side dishes, right? It's all the stuff that you need.
Banjo-Kazooie, damn
it. And so like to say that they're redundant, I think is short-sighted and stupid, because it's not even true of the sites, because the sites serve two different purposes there, which is doubly frustrating. And I think I don't read Rock Paper Shotgun a lot, but I think it's similar because Rock Paper Shotgun, again, I don't think they're out there doing hype beasts for like IGN does or whatever. I think they have more like thought-provoking stuff, even if it's stuff that I disagree with. I think it's stuff that's more thoughtful. So that entire framing bothers me, and it's just more corporate malfeasance and just inhumanity, just where you turn people into numbers and you got to do what you got to do to make a fucking number go up, and it's really frustrating. If you're Rolling Stone, hey, that's cool. Thanks for the gaming outlet, but what are you getting me
Who
writing?
asked for your opinion?
I can't wait for the top 100 video game characters of all time list from Rolling Stone.
Oh, right. No, but like what, I don't know, because independence is an important thing in journalism. You have to be able to say what you want to say or what you think is correct to say, right? So if you are backed by the Savvy Business Group, I think that's an issue, because their goal, Saudi Arabia's goal right now, is to sort of wash its reputation of numerous human rights abuses and all kinds of stuff like that. And again, I always say this when I bring this up, because it's not like I live in a country that is a paragon of moral virtue, because the United States is not. But I don't agree with everything the United States does, and just because the United States may be a horrible place, it doesn't mean other countries get a pass for being horrible places either. So, if I'm at Rolling Stone, it's like, well, what does that mean? What does our connection to the Saudi royal family mean? If I want to write an essay about Saudi Arabia funding and investing more into games and the ethical quandaries there, will I be able to write that? I think that's interesting. And to start off on that foot, I think is shaky, because you're accepting money from somebody whose goal I don't think is to make meaningful content about video games. It's to nurture a space where their investment into esports specifically will thrive. And that's not about meaningful content. That's just about making money off of esports,
Right.
Which is an important distinction to make.
Which esports doesn't even make that much money.
Yeah, but everybody. It's one of those things where it's like AI or metaverse. It's one
They're
of those
trying to
things
make it happen.
where
Yeah.
a bunch of people think it can, and there's spaces. They're like, we've talked about this before. It's like, how do we make money? Look at all these people watching Twitch. How do we make money off of this? And so there's all these high-level executives that are overpaid that are trying to figure that out, and they don't know, because there may not be a great way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the overall things to say is like, how do we? I've thought about writing a giant essay on this, but I don't know how to organize my thoughts coherently. But it's like, how do we fix this? How do we fix? Well, I was gonna say games journalism, but then it's like, well, you have to fix the economy first, and to fix the economy, you just gotta fix all mankind. So easy, no. But it's
Simple.
Give it 5 years.
But how do you what are solutions? That's maybe a better way. What are solutions here? I think one solution really is, as corporate-y as it sounds, is synergy. I think when people make games, put out a video, I think if I'm at Aftermath, I'm saying, hey, go check out this video. Go watch this. If Aftermath writes a really good essay on something, and I'm Steven Totillo, I'm linking to that essay all the time in my newsletter. When Jason Schreier writes a big profile on something, or his upcoming book about Blizzard, if I'm at People Make Games, maybe I make a quick video. Here's my thoughts on this Blizzard book. Not because my thoughts on it are so important, but because if you have an audience that is clearly dipping its toes into serious games discussion, I think it is beneficial to point them in the direction of other people that are doing those things. Because I think right now, people like us, we follow Steven Totillo, we follow Aftermath, we follow Jason Schreier, we follow People Make Games. But there are a small number of us that follow all those people, right?
Yeah.
And the people that follow all those people are always talking about those people. But it's like, well, how do we get the circle to enlarge? How do we get those audiences to get bigger? And I think one way is that synergy is saying, hey, and what's great about that is that they serve different mediums. People Make Games makes documentaries. So in their 2.5-hour documentary about Disco Elysium, which is phenomenal, they interview the developers, and you see the developers' faces. You see the emotion on their face as they're talking about the legal, the long list of like legal issues that have happened since the game release and stuff like that. And that's a different medium than Aftermath, where it's just a short 500-word essay about something that's personal to a writer, right? Different mediums that communicate different ideas about games, and it's important to have that diversity in medium. So yeah, I think that's one solution. I don't know. I think another, and Richard, this is something I think maybe you have mentioned before, is like, at the end of the day, also, you just have to, I don't know, you just have to want this stuff, I guess. If you care about games, I would hope that this kind of stuff is stuff you want.
Mm-hmm.
But because I think there are people out there that don't, for one reason or another. There's a political angle there. There's an anti-SJW, anti-game journalism angle there, coming from who knows where.
Sure. Oh yeah, God. But when we really want to look at all of media, I'm going to use big three: movies, music, video games. They really aren't different from each other. Like if we look at movies, what makes the most money? I think like that Wonka movie made like over $600 million, and it's like that's like an average blockbuster movie. But you still do have movies like Oppenheimer like making a ton of money. So you do, like, when video games, you still have like, I'm gonna use The Last of Us 2 making lots of money, but of course you still do have NBA Madden selling every year. You have, he's fine, but you do have Taylor Swift, like tons of money. But then you do have people who go back and will listen to like Fleetwood Mac or Beatles or whoever, and be more serious about the content that they and I just think that it's all the same. You're only going to get so much of what people want to actually focus on, and then what makes the money. It's just I think that for this industry, that line is way more volatile than the other two. Yeah, and I think what you're getting at is there are degrees of like of what's your purpose when you're reporting on something? What's your purpose when you're writing about something? There was a discussion at Aftermath where they talked about the difference between like car journalism and arts journalism, where it's like car journalism is just the parts, the tires. It's like physical entities. Where arts journalism, it's like, how do you talk about a painting? There's emotions, there's economic context, there's all kinds of different contexts for a painting, right? Economic context, the medium that whatever, it's watercolors or whatever, right? So it's like it's much more complicated when viewed through the lens of, instead of just being like a collection of parts. And I think in game journalism you have something similar where it can just be car journalism,
And that's not necessarily a wrong thing, where it's like, here are the games that are releasing, here are the DLCs, here are the updates, what games are in early access, how much do they cost, that kind of thing, nuts and bolts. But then there's the more thinking about it. Baseball, similar. Who won? How many pitches did he throw? How many home runs? Now it's like, tell me about this pitcher. What's his process? You know, how does the manager bring the team together? What's the chemistry like in the dugout? Kind of stuff that doesn't really have like numbers attached to it, right? Mm-hmm. That are more about the game, more about the emotions involved with the game. So I think like art journalism is similar. And on your point, it's like you have those different levels of depth to what you want to get, what you want your reporting and discussion to be. And so it's like, how do you make people care about the deeper angle to that? And I don't know. It's difficult, but and video games are also relatively new, right? So it's like you've had years of academic writing about movies. You've had years of academic writing about music. You've had years of academic writing about art. Video games, not so much. And I think that irks people sometimes because there's no real reason for that other than I think it's just difficult to run a website. And back in the day, I'm sure it was difficult to run a magazine or something, but maybe it's just more difficult because of the way that the internet works, because it's ruled by Google. And so that's what you got to contend with. I don't know. Okay, is there anything else we would like to see here? Okay. Oh, Richard. Sorry, I almost stepped on you there.
All right. Neil Druckmann had an interview with Sony PR, and PR it definitely was. Afterwards, Druckmann said that the interview wasn't quite accurate and even shared his transcript of it, which showed that there were things that were completely made up, but we will get to that shortly. Druckmann said a lot of things. The importance of AI came up a lot. He also spoke about how vital remote work tools have been. He said that while many companies insist on sticking to profitable franchises, Sony Interactive Entertainment empowers them to pursue new ideas. Druckmann was asked about how the interplay between the physical and virtual will evolve over the next decade, and he said, quote, "The Last of Us experience at Universal Studios Hollywood was special because it let you touch, smell, and feel, which affects you differently than the games. The ultimate dream is to create experiences that completely encapsulate all your senses." The final few lines are what went viral. Druckmann was asked about a personal vision or dream project he hopes to see realized in the future, and it was quoted as saying...
I cut this down for brevity.
That's all right. Quote, "I've been lucky to work on several dream projects and am currently excited about a new one, which is perhaps the most thrilling yet. I'm eager to see how this new game resonates, especially following the success of The Last of Us, as it could redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming." And according to Druckmann, he never said that.
Yeah, so the line that went viral and got a lot of criticism, Druckmann never said. Did you guys have a chance to read the entire interview?
I hadn't had a chance, but I've seen I've seen a lot of people, a lot of journalists, reputable journalists speak on it. But yeah, I didn't read the actual transcript itself.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. I understand that it's a PR piece, so when it comes to, there are a few things that my definition of art is like, if a human makes it, it is art. Yeah. It means something, even if it's bad. If it's bad, if that human made it and it makes them feel something, it's art. But there are two things that are not art. Yeah, Neil Breen's an artist. He is. He doesn't make good movies.
Whether you like it or not.
He doesn't make good movies. I don't know how self-aware he is, but he's definitely an artist. You'll be here in my heart. Okay, but that's the only Neil Breen line I know, I think. I don't think I know any others. But there's only two things on this world that are not art. And that's commercials and PR. Those are not art. They are meaningless drivel. That's all it is. And so reading through this thing, I think it's important to say that to understand what it is. I understand Druckmann's position because what is he supposed to do, right? Like flip out a cigarette and let me tell you something. Just rip Sony a new one. Like, okay, so it's a letter to investors. Druckmann likes his career. I don't think he's gonna, decide to rip apart Sony. So I understand that he has to toe the line between being honest and putting on a show for the investors. But all that said, yeah, this was a confusing interview, and I don't understand what it gets. Even if I was an investor in Sony, I don't understand what it does for me, because it doesn't make me any more confident in PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's
very interesting, because as an investor, like, I don't know. I'm sure investors obviously, hold on. I'm sure investors in Sony probably to some extent invest because they enjoy Sony products, or maybe whatever.
Perhaps.
But your main goal as an investor is to recoup money,
yes.
is to get money.
Yeah.
So why would you care about anything but the end goal? And so having that, to me, if you were to say, oh yeah, we're going to use AI to, push out more stuff, like, as an investor, I would be like, that doesn't do anything for me now. Like,
yeah, and
where are the results? Like, give me the results,
Yeah, AI has become one of those buzzwords that, like transmedia, which was talked about here as well, which, what I'm going to sound like George Carlin here. What happened to multimedia? Mm-hmm. Is multimedia too like CD? Is it too DVD? Right? Mm-hmm. Is that what multimedia is? So now you have to invent transmedia, because now there's not. It goes between.
It transcends.
It goes between the medias. It's not on multiple media. Whatever the fuck. It's stupid, and it's more PR corporate shit.
All bullshit.
But anyway,
we need to go back to UMDs.
AI is AI is like this buzzword that doesn't have a whole lot of meaning, and it's kind of like this catch-all, solve-all for everything.
Yes,
and I understand. That's not to say that AI probably won't have any ethical uses at all, but companies are so concerned, like with the metaverse, about showing that they know what it is, that they have a handle on it, and they've got their top men working on it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be perceived as not understanding it.
Yeah.
Which of course they don't. None of them understood what the metaverse was either.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
they're trying to use AI to get rid of the middle part and just have a beginning and an end. The start of the thing, it's going to make it, and then you get the money. But there was a really great example of Square Enix came out, and they said, like, yeah, we used AI when we made Final Fantasy Rebirth, and what we did is we trained the AI to do the voice acting, the lip movement for the voice acting, and so
to like match the voices.
Yes,
okay,
yeah, and it's like, and that's what we use the AI for, and it's like, okay, well, that's cool. Like, you're using something to supplement the artistry that you're creating, instead of just trying to
using it as a tool rather than a replacement.
Right? Yeah, you're using it. Yeah, and so what they should be doing is like, oh, okay, we have these AI assets that we're going to use, or this AI program that we're going to use to cut down the time it would take to make this thing. Therefore, you save more money. Therefore, you gain more money. But they all do. They all want the end goal before they even start the race.
Yeah.
So.
And then there's I love this. I embolded the line. The ultimate dream is to create experiences that completely encapsulate all your senses. Can we just have good games? Like, no, Neil, we don't. And listen, Neil, I understand. I don't know if you actually said this. I know you're just talking because the investors came in. They woke up from their 12 o'clock nap. They have their juice boxes, and you just got to say something to keep them interested before their parents pick them up. So I get it. But
I want the next big game release to come out with a sensory deprivation tank that you put yourself into,
Hell yeah.
and then it applies the senses of the game to you, so you can truly get all of your senses encapsulated in the game.
But it's just like, can we just have good games, please? For the sweet love of Jesus, like, just... I'm watching Sopranos all that, so I'm going to say, Maron, can we just have, like, hey, don't, not for nothing, but can we just have good video games? Can we just have good games? We don't need, like, all this bullshit about different senses and whatever. It makes me roll my eyes.
Animal Well might win Game of the Year, and it is 35 megabytes.
Yes. Good Christ. Yes. So it's like, we don't need so much of that stuff. And the other, yeah, and I do want to harp on transmedia storytelling a little bit more because it's like, I don't know. I guess it's just what Fallout and Last of Us did is very difficult, but also easy, I guess. Because, let me put it a different way. When you watched Last of Us, it was like, oh yeah, that, like, I couldn't make this show because I don't know how to make television shows, but I could see why they made that decision. Sure. And then, oh yeah, this part in the game, they did this scene instead of that part in the game. That makes sense. Sure.
Yeah.
And in The Last of Us, there was Bill specifically was the one change that was just mind-blowingly good. But it's like it makes sense. The translation makes sense. That doesn't always happen. You look at the Halo show. You look at a gigantic pile of dead bodies that are video game movies, you know, where it's just like you have the game and you decided to do this with the IP. So it's like, I don't know, on one hand, what Fallout and Last of Us did is extremely hard. On the other, it doesn't take a genius to say that the Mario movie was probably a bad idea because of all the bullshit.
Oh yeah, the OG one.
Yeah, because of all the bullshit that they added and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know. Do people understand this?
No.
Do they understand that?
No.
I don't know. And maybe it starts with respecting the source material too. Who knows? Is there anything else we would like to say about this?
No, sir.
We get another Marone from you.
Maron.
There we go.
Hey, Tony, not for nothing. Okay, that's my best. That's my best and only. Fuck! Now I can't remember his name. It's the guy with the wings in his hair.
The gray.
Polly, thank you. I
yeah.
can't even remember it. And he doesn't say Tony. He says,
It's
hey,
like the
Tony.
most common
Hey,
name.
Hey,
Polly.
Tony, not for nothing. And he goes, hey. And he throws his hand up like this. I'm doing a bunch of horrible.
Stereotypical.
I'm making a pizza.
It would be great if they
Just down the street
reshot-
from me is a place called Tony's Plaza, and it has like the coloring of like Tony's Plaza is the Italian flag. So every time I go by, it's like, hey, Tony's Plaza.
all I can think about is I keep wanting to say Bill and Ted. It's not Bill and Ted. It was Adult Swim. The two guys.
Tim and Eric?
Tim and Eric.
Thank you.
Tim and Eric,
Why did I say thank you?
the pizza massage.
I've never seen that.
You never seen the pizza massage?
I don't
Where it's
think-
like the restaurant, and it's the pizza and the massaging the guy? Oh my God.
I think I did.
All right, we got to watch that.
We'll
after
watch
this,
it.
I can only
after
watch
this.
so much Tim and Eric
No, I get it.
Like,
this one's good.
before you like overdose.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
Like,
That totally
and
makes
I'm
sense.
like laying down on the ground and I'm like, my pop, and the medic finds me. And he's like, oh my God, takes
Good
a
enough
huge,
for a poke.
takes a huge puff of a cigarette.
blows it
Oh
in your
my
face.
God, he's overdosed on Tim and Eric. Get this man some fucking Shakespeare stat. inject him with some Jane Austen. Fucking CBS.
A whole rewiring.
PBS Entertainment. Something boring. What's next, Connor?
WB is returning all Adult Swim games back to its devs. Back in March, devs with games under the Adult Swim label were going to be retired, and the devs wouldn't get rights to those games, meaning they would be delisted. Earlier this month, Owen Deary, who made Small Radio, Big Televisions, and London Blisky, I think that's right.
I'll say you're right the first time.
Cool.
Hey, not for nothing, but you were right the first time, Tone.
Landon Poblisky, who made Duck Game, said ownership and listing of the games were returning to them.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say here. I just wanted to. I missed this. I saw this today. I was going through some old news, and I was like, hey, cool. Because there was no reason for WB to do that.
No.
So good for them. I don't know about the other games, but hopefully everyone that was affected has control of their game, because WB is not going to hurt at all if they just give up ownership and control of these
Of a
games.
$5 game. Yeah.
Yes, and if they don't, it is out of pure malice.
Yeah.
That is the only explanation, is pure utter contempt for other humans if WB doesn't. So, yeah. Do you guys have anything to say?
Mm-mm.
Do we have tidbits?
Yes.
Let's do tidbits. What if I told you, in this world, there are bits and there are tids? and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
Want like a triangle and a square hole, and I'm just like,
I was just thinking of the prison IQ scene. Idiocracy.
Idiocracy. Okay. I thought this where you were going with that. WB is returning Adult Swim games back to the. I'm kidding.
I had a bit of a heart attack for a second, and then I remembered it was Richard, and I was like, okay, this is one of Richard's dry humor jokes.
One of my bits.
Hey, he's a jokester, fellas.
According to the German rating organization, USK, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door was classified in June 2023, a year prior to its release. Usually when games are classified by a country, it's most of the time South Korea that it happens, means the release is imminent, like it's going to be coming out very soon. So with its assumption, it's pretty much believed that many Nintendo games that have been released in the last like year and a half, 2 years, have been done and are just kind of sitting around
waiting for Switch 2.
Yeah, not just Switch 2, but the idea is Nintendo they already know what they're going to be doing like so far in advance and have releases ready to go for that.
We complain about Nintendo a lot, but if we're being honest with ourselves, and Nintendo does a lot of stupid shit. The company that seems to have most of its shit together is probably Nintendo.
Yeah.
Now.
And that there's been lots of Metroid Prime Remaster is a big one. That game supposedly, along with the other two Prime games, have been done. There's been a couple leakers before Remastered came out that have been like, yeah, all three of them are done. They're gonna release it soon.
Oh,
but they only released one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So they only released Metro Prime 1. Yeah. And then of course, Advance Wars Reboot 1 and 2 was done for a while, but that got pushed back due to the Ukraine war and some other stuff. But that unfortunately hurt its sales like a lot, which sucks. Resident Evil 6 has sold over 1 million copies on the Switch. Capcom has updated the Platinum Titles page on its investor portal, and that basically means any game that sells over 1 million copies since launch will get that tag. The same thing with like greatest hits games, platinum hits games, etc. And so they revealed that Resident Evil 6 has achieved that feat.
I wonder if next generation we're going to see these kinds of numbers from Switch 2. Because I think a lot of people are probably buying games for the second time. Like they got Resident Evil 6 when it came out. A few years later, they got a Switch or whatever. And then like a few years after that, they're like, hey, I'll buy Resident Evil 6 again and play it on my Switch.
It happens.
So I wonder, like I did that with Pillars of Eternity. I literally did that. I was playing it on my PC, came out for the Switch. I was like, hell yeah. Got it for the Switch. It has a game-breaking bug that was never fixed.
Hell yeah.
And I got the Steam Deck. But notwithstanding that, I wonder if that's going to happen again with Switch 2. I don't know.
That could. I do know that there's possibility of like just updates happening for like however powerful the Switch 2 may or may not be, but we'll see. Moving on. Atari has acquired the Intellivision brand and game catalog. Wade Rosen, the CEO of Atari, made an announcement early last week. And accompanying the announcement was another statement, which he said, quote, the former Intellivision will rebrand and continue distribution of the Amico console. I really want to talk about the Amico console, but I only know so much about it. It's a console that, of course, was announced years back from Intellivision, which was headed by Tommy Tallarico, which
that's where I heard this.
A lot of stuff has come out about him and that.
It's like, what the fuck's Amico? I know this.
The funny thing is, there's lots of funny things, but the funny thing is a personal story. Is somebody came in and had the entire set of the launch titles for Amico still sealed. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize this came out. I bought them from him, whatever. And I went and researched it later, and I realized that the console's still not out. They just released the games, though. And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, we ended up selling those games, but now that whoever has those games are probably going to make bank eventually, because they were all sealed and everything. Anyways, it's very interesting that they still plan on releasing that thing. Oh well.
Yeah, and I haven't. The only thing I know about it is H Bomber's guy's video about the oof sound effect.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know. But
I liked that guy too for a bit, Tommy Tallarico, but only because he was the reason why we had Video Games Live. It came, anyways.
Sure.
Nintendo has made an acquisition. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this in the news.
Wait, I think I heard about this.
Nintendo is acquiring Shiver Entertainment from Embracer, the studio behind the Switch's Hogwarts Legacy and Mortal Kombat 1 ports. The team will be continuing commissions that port and develop software for multiple platforms, including Nintendo Switch. And I think they clarified that. So Shiver Entertainment is under contract with several ports to several consoles. They will be fulfilling those. Then afterwards, they'll be moving to Switch port development, which lends more evidence to the possibility of a lot of Nintendo Switch games being ported to the Switch 2, which will have like higher resolution and frame rates and stuff, which Mortal Kombat 1 was not a good port. There's lots of videos and evidences, but apparently Hogwarts Legacy was a really great port. And what they did with that game apparently was make is open world, but they like cut down sections and made them like loading.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so like when you go between areas, it would just load up the next area.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So apparently they did really good with it.
Have you played Witcher on Switch?
No, I haven't.
I wonder if that's how The Witcher works. Or if it's
I don't think so, because CD Projekt Red did that port themselves.
Oh,
and I think that from what I heard when articles were coming out, or what I read, was that it was pretty much just playing Witcher 3 on like the absolute lowest settings possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's it.
All right. Anything else we want to discuss before we get out of here?
The fact that I still don't have my Steam Deck.
I'm sorry, Richard.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's my own fault. It's my own hubris.
Call it Gabe.
It'll be here
We'll
soon.
get him on the show next week.
Okay, yeah.
We'll have Gabe Newell on the show next week, along with Matty Guys and everybody. Follow us on, go to youtube.com/gaming discourse, patreon.com/the gaming discourse, and we'll see you.